Yeah, I'll use that, but I gotta record myself preaching so I remember what I said. Because then I get in a pot kettle situation, you know?
Now, what do you call that if you, what do you?
The shirt you're wearing fits the clock on the right, it's on Hawaiian time.
Oh, good, good.
What do you call that if you have to record yourself?
I don't know.
Patting yourself on the back? No.
It's not patting myself on the back, it's so that I can remember what I say and what I don't say, so when I get up here in a few years again, I won't say the same thing. Oh, good. Okay. Whoa. Yeah, can I see myself in my camera? When Greg asked me to share, I was like, well, what do I have to say? Generally, I have a lot to say. If you ask any of my students, I talk. So they'll ask me a question that's a one-word answer, and 30 minutes later, they don't get the answer. Yeah, Greg asked me to talk, and it's really funny because where I was at, or / where I am at in my spiritual journey, I've been in quite the spiritual desert, is what I'll call it. So, you know, I'm generally a person that I can feel God around me. I can feel His presence whenever, like all the time, pretty much. If I just close my eyes, take a deep breath, I can just feel it. But as of, kind of started in January, but as of the April 1st, that was gone, and there was nothing. And it kind of propagates, and how you handle the spiritual desert is really important because you're supposed to learn something in it, and if you don't learn that thing, sometimes the desert keeps going, or you have to go through the same process over and over again. And that's kind of uncomfortable. This whole growing and stretching and learning thing is kind of uncomfortable. And it's really funny because when Greg asked me, I had just finished a devotional about going through the spiritual desert, and my response was, why the heck did you ask me? I'm not hearing anything. I don't know what to talk about. And that's kind of where I was for a while. But so I guess I'm going to talk about the spiritual desert. But first, I want us to listen and watch a song, because I think this song really sums up everything I should say that I probably won't say. Because again, I'm like, it's like herding cats when I talk. You never know where I'm going to go. You never know what I'm going to do. So if you'll bring the song up, Sharon, I'll get out of the way. But this song really sums up, God, thank you for this day and giving me the opportunity to speak. And I ask you to speak through me because otherwise the congregation is in for quite the ride. Amen. I'll start off with Proverbs 13:12. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is a tree of life. I started off this year pretty rough. I was going through relationship issues back in January, and then I moved back to California, and the first or second week of school, I got so sick that I passed out in the shower and banged my head, and I couldn't get out of bed for a week. And if you ever done the quarter system when you're in class, it goes really fast. So if you miss a week, you're a month behind. Now, a quarter system in graduate school, if you miss a week, you're done. There's no hope. I missed 1 week. I had 1 week to catch up. The next week was the first test. That test did not go well for me. But all that being said, God was very good and gracious to me, and I caught up. I made it through the quarter with relatively flying colors. So there's a big test that you have to take for graduate school. It's essentially like a test of understanding for physics. So it covers all your first year topics. But they changed the rules, so if you get an A- or above, you don't have to take the test. And, well, I got an A- or above in all my classes except for one. And 3 of those 4 classes were in the winter quarter, which is the quarter I got sick and everything. And I tested out of all of those after taking my week off and everything. And so that was just great. I was running high. I was like, and my relationship with God was going great. And it's funny because I was reading Passover reading the Passover story back in February, and it talks about how Pharaoh hardens his heart and how God hardened Pharaoh's heart. And I realized there are things in my life that I was hardening my heart. I can't even remember what those things were, but I remember praying, God, don't let me harden my heart. Please soften my heart. And I tell you what, you better be careful what you pray. Because it's not just a simple little woohoo. I mean, sometimes it is, but anyway. So one of the things I've really struggled with giving to God is school. Because school is, it's a big part of who I am. I've been in school for 23 years or something like that. Well, I guess not 23 years. I count the time I was with Brother Bob before I went to school, because that was way more intense than any other school I got. Anyway, so I've been in school a long time, and I've always had a hard time giving that to him and trusting him with it. Because, I've accomplished some pretty cool things in my school career, and I always thought it was a fluke. And so I was like, I don't want to give this to you, God. I mean, what if you take it away? Because this is just a fluke. That's called imposter syndrome, by the way. Symptoms of imposter syndrome. You think everything's a fluke. You do really well, but you still think it's a fluke. And so there's ways to cope. You either over-prepare or you procrastinate. Which one do you think I do? Procrastinate. So anyway, I had a hard time giving it to God. And so this test comes up. We call it the comprehensive exam or the qualifying exam. I had to take it for one subject. And it's the week of spring quarter. So this was right as coronavirus hit. Everything shuts down. Everybody's scrambling. I'm in California trying to study, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. They're going to put martial law on me. I got to get out of here before they lock me in. And so I came back here and I took the test. And I failed the test. And this is the first time in my life I've actually failed something that I couldn't make a way around it to pass. And I mean, there's no option other than you take it again. And the funniest part was the university didn't tell me I failed. So all my friends got, congrats, you passed. And I'm just sitting there. I don't think I passed. Okay. And I knew I didn't pass. I knew after I turned in the test, I was like, that did not go well for me. I had an anxiety attack in the middle of it. And, and I had the option to defer till September. And I felt like God was saying, no, take it. I don't know if God was actually saying that or if I was running off the high of my semester, my quarter, and like, yeah, I can take on anything. I actually do think God was saying that because, I've dealt with anxiety a lot, and I've never wanted to deal with it in like let's actually get over this and not use it as a crutch and excuse for why you don't do well. Anyway, so I took it. University didn't notify me I failed. Got an email from my academic advisor. Let's talk about your results. I said, what results? And then there was a panic, and then there was an official letter that had a bunch of typos telling me I didn't pass. Anyway, that was a big blow to the ego. That was a big blow to me. I considered dropping out of grad school because I was like, I obviously don't belong here. Which is foolish because a lot of people fail this exam the first time. I have 3 chances to take it. And that's really the start of my spiritual wilderness, desert journey that I've been in, because instead of being like, okay, God, whatever you're doing, I'm with it, I said, I'm not going to talk to you about this anymore. We're done. I'll talk to you about the things I need, like, if I need help on a test, I'll pray about it. So I hardened my heart to this. And what God did was, like, okay, if you're going to act like a baby, I'm going to treat you like a baby. And he put me in the corner, and so that's kind of how it started. And I didn't realize I was doing this. This wasn't like a conscious thing that I was doing. I wasn't consciously saying, God, I'm not going to let you in on this part of my life anymore. I wasn't conscious of it, and I didn't even know what was going on until one day I woke up, and it just felt barren. That's all I can describe it as. I wasn't getting excited from the Bible stories I was reading. I wasn't getting excited from any devotionals. I'd listened to preachings and all these things, and it was just nothing to me. I was just bored. I would have rather gone and played video games, which, that might be true all the time, but this time it was actually like just meaningless. That's all I can describe it. I can just describe it as meaningless. Okay? Once I realized I was there, I was like, okay. In the Word, it says all these things. You draw near to God, He draws near to you. And so I tried to kind of like manipulate His Word to get Him to talk to me. And so now I'll read John 7:37 through 38. On the last day, the great day of the feast, Jesus stood and cried out, saying, If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. He who believes in me, as the Scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. And I said, okay, God, I believe in you. I'm coming to you. Let's get this over with this week. Silence. Nothing. And so I hit a pretty good low. I don't know if it was an all-time low, but pretty good low after the silence. And I was just like, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to do anything. So I didn't. And I kind of just sat in my wilderness and threw my pity party and everything. And, it took me a long time being a few months, but it took me a long time to realize, this is what happened. And I'm still processing how I got there and what I'm learning from it. Really what started to bring me out of it was, so in June, I was going through a breakup, and I had to decide to go through the breakup because we had been having problems, and so we took some time off, slowed things down, and in June we were gonna talk, get back together, or not get back together. And while I was going through school, I had a pretty good quarter. I'd say a pretty good quarter. And so I finished the quarter. She wanted to talk a week later. A week after that, I had the Huntsman Cancer ride. So I was trying to ride my bike. Just came off the high of school. So if you don't know me very well on how I do school, I get really focused this time. Focused. I used to get really focused, and I'd take all the stress, and it wouldn't hit me until about 3 days after my last final. And then it hits me, and then it generally wipes me out for a week or two. And I'm talking sickness, can't sleep, whatever it is. It'll hit me. So all that hit me. My girlfriend at the time said, we need to talk this week. And I was just like, okay. And that's really what started to bring me back to God, because I was like, okay, God, I have not talked about this. I have not thought about this. Okay? And so I'm relying on you, and he came through, and we ended up breaking up for various reasons. The biggest being I'm in California, and she's in Salt Lake. Okay? And so that really started to bring me through it, and through my breakup, we didn't break up because we didn't have feelings for each other. We broke up just because timing's a thing. And so it was really hard. I remember I went out and looked at the stars. I was just moping. And I told God, I was like, God, I can't do this. I just can't. Because, I was trying to juggle everything with school, because I'm technically still supposed to be doing research, but the coronavirus, but this. And I said, God, I can't do this. And I heard clear as day, in my head, I think. It could have been audible, I didn't know. I heard, Mark, I'm here. And so I start bawling, and I'm a crier now. I went like 10 years of my life without crying, and now I cry at the drop of the hat. And so that was really the start of growing up, I guess. Stopping to throw my pity party and actually start walking through the desert that I was in, the spiritual desert. Anyway, so that's how I got there. Now I'm just going to talk to you about being prepared. Because there's a couple ways you can handle this. If you get in a time, in spiritually, emotionally, physically, whatever, when you're in the wilderness, there's nothing around you, it's just barren, there's a few things you can do. I used to like watching survival shows, and survival shows always talk about, like, this is how you can do this is how you can be prepared, and all this stuff. And through the time when I was considering quitting grad school, I was thinking about going to the Navy SEALs. I know, quite the jump. Destroy your mind, get beat up emotionally and mentally, flip over to get beat up physically. And so I started watching a lot of podcasts by ex-Navy SEALs, looking into the training and everything. And their big thing is you need to be prepared for life. You need to be prepared, okay? So you can take it head on, be prepared, go with God and press so hard into God, because that's what you need to do when you're going through your spiritual desert. Or you can be like me and sit down and play in the dirt and refuse to do anything. Guess which one lasts longer? It's not being prepared. I mean, I can't say how long it will last if you're prepared. But I can tell you that if you just sit down and throw a tantrum, you are getting nowhere. So this is Ecclesiastes 3, I think it's verse 1. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. And then it goes through and it lists the times for everything. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, and all this stuff. And it's funny because I was like, why is there ever a time for a spiritual desert? I thought if I, called out to you, came to you to drink, as it says in John, and I believe in you, then it'll always be rivers of like living water. It'll all be hunky-dory. Well, how do you grow if you're not tested? How do you know what your faith is if you're not tested? In my head, my faith was great. But what happens in my head isn't necessarily what happens or what is reality. So sometimes we enter a spiritual desert on our own. I feel like I kind of drove myself there and said, take the car, God, I'm going to sit down in the dirt. Sometimes God takes us there. We could be flying high at the high of our career, and then suddenly we're just there. I had a friend I was talking to. Her dad had a very successful business, and it was going really well. They were being very successful, very profitable. Her dad's friend stole the business from him, and now he doesn't have a job. And it's funny, I was talking, because the friend was telling me a fight the family got in, because the family was saying, well, it's because you have so much sin in your life, and you did all this and this. And my friend was very, very upset, and I said, I don't think that's what it was. I don't know your dad's life. I don't know what sin he had in his life, but I think there are seasons for a reason, and God just takes you there in preparation for something else. That could be something greater, it could be moving into a different job, but it's in preparation for something. That's really what I believe, it sounds like a gimmick to say spiritual desert, but these dry times, these these tests in your life. It's in preparation for something else. It's God preparing you for your next walk in life. Okay? So this is Deuteronomy 8:2 verse 3, 2 through 3. And you shall remember that the Lord your God led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you and test you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. So he humbled you, allowed you to hunger, and fed you manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he may make you know that man shall not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. I thought that was pretty good. And all these scriptures came last night when I was just like sitting in bed, and it's kind of like the lottery. I just sit in bed and I hear Deuteronomy, then a number, 12, 2. I look that up. Oh, that doesn't exist. Let's try again. So it's kind of like shooting in the dark. But through that, I think I got some pretty good verses. The biggest thing that I've learned from this whole experience is that we are not victims. And that's the biggest thing I've seen in teaching, in interactions with my friends, in myself. I get the victim mentality and I think, poor me, I had to move to California. Poor me, I got into a university that's ranked, it's like top 20 in the United States. Poor me. I'm a victim. God made me go here. I didn't want to go here. That's not true. I made the decision to go there. I wanted to get into a top-tier school. So we are not a victim of this. We are not victims. It is our choice. We make choices in life. And yeah, some of those choices are bad. You know, I biked up Wheeler 2 days ago, Thursday. I have not been biking in the month of July at all. And I tell you what, if you bike we start at the Baker Cutoff, and then we go to the Wheeler Peak Trailhead. It was 41 miles. You gain about 6,000 feet in elevation, give or take. I had not been training. It was 95 degrees. That's actually when I prepared this talk, because Ben, for some reason, doesn't lose physical ability. Either that or he's just really able to push himself, because man, that guy was flying up this hill and I'm back there. There were points when I thought I might start crying. I wanted to get off my bike and throw it off the mountain and go home. But you know what? I said, we're doing this once before I go back to California. And I'm really glad he was there doing it with me. And this is when I was really like, okay, what am I going to talk about on Saturday? And I already kind of knew talking about the wilderness, but God really focused it on being prepared. Because I've done that ride many times. And I can tell you, if you are prepared for it, it's a lot of fun. And you can go a lot faster. You don't have your phone telling you, you're going 3 miles an hour. To which I respond, I could walk faster than this. And it's funny when I was preparing, because this kind of goes back to imposter syndrome. I kept thinking, what do I have to share that they don't know already? And why would they want me to share? Because there's better people to share. And then I started giving this talk in my head, and for a second I was John, giving the talk as John, and then I was Greg, giving the talk as Greg, and then Gerald, and then Ron, and then Kaya, and then my dad. And then God said, I don't want any of those guys to give this talk. I want you to give this talk. You talk how you're going to talk. It just so happens it's herding cats when I talk, but you talk how you're going to talk. I'm really not joking there. I feel so bad for my students. They're so polite, and they just sit and listen to me and say, and then they'll ask their question again. They're like, how did you answer my question? I was like, oh, I forgot that was your question. And then here's the best part. I would walk away mid-sentence and go do something else. So I finally had to have a come to Jesus moment with him, and I said, everyone, if I'm not answering your question, stop me and say, no, this is what I wanted. Okay? You do not have to have like this, you do have to respect me. I am your teacher. But stop me. I'm not going to get offended. Okay? I'm the type of guy who puts your trash in the refrigerator, takes the full gallon of milk, throws it in the garbage. This is not a metaphor, actually. This actually happens to me. Ask my sisters and my brother, and this actually happens to me, okay? See, now I've already forgot what I'm talking about. Being prepared, that's right. Thanks, Kaya. Anyway, so I'm going up Wheeler, and I thought I did prepare. Like, I prepared as much as I could without writing. I started super hydrating a few days before. The night before, I ate this huge high-carb meal. The day of, I ate a good breakfast. But I neglected to read the nutritional facts on the fuel that I brought to eat, because I was doing 1/3 of what the serving was. And so Ben's out there just chowing down. He's great. We get up to the Mather Overlook, and I was like, yeah, I've actually eaten this much. And he's like, are you kidding me? You have not eaten anything. And I was like, no, this is 100 calories. And he's like, no, it's not. He was right. And so even when I was trying to be prepared, I wasn't prepared. And the moral of this embarrassing story, not embarrassing, it's fun. The moral of this story is you can't rush to be prepared. You can't, if you have a situation in your life, you can't read the whole Bible the night before and be like, I know the Word of God and I know exactly what to do. That's not how this works. You have to spend hours studying. You have to spend hours in prayer. And not even hours. Yes, hours would be nice, but if you're busy, spend 5 minutes. Read the verse of the day. On my phone, I get the verse of the day. And there's some days that's all I can read. Read the verse of the day, pray about it, think about it. It says to meditate on His Word, right? Well, that doesn't mean you sit, legs crossed, and just go, you can, but you can go throughout your day and just think about it. And pray, God, open my eyes to what this verse is saying as you're doing your work, as you're teaching your students. You got to be prepared. Back to my Wheeler story. So I really like to come downhill. And my older brother, Anthony, is really good at cornering. It really scares me. But and I, back when we used to ride together, almost 10 years ago now, I said, I will get so I can corner like that. I will get so I can beat him down the mountain. Well, I can beat Ben down the mountain now. Because, he has a brain, and he's like, I'm going to die. And I'm like, I have health insurance. I'll be fine. And so I took it pretty fast. And starting up until about Mather, it was going great. I was like, I'm cornering great. And so I haven't told my parents this, I don't think. Buckle up, guys. So we're going down, and there's a turn. It's a horseshoe. And this one has a good shoulder, but it doesn't have a guardrail. And the shoulder, there's probably that much drop off the shoulder to get onto the shoulder. And there's rocks all over the road, and I'm a chicken. So I was like, I'm going to take this corner. I'm going to take it fast. I can do this. I know how to do this. I haven't cornered in a long time, by the way, just so you know. I said, I'm going to do this. And so I'm sitting there shouting to myself, lean, lean, as I'm on the bike, because when you're riding the bike on these road bikes, you want to tuck your shoulder down, lean into it, and push as hard as you can on your outside foot. Okay, it bounces out. You can pretty much lay all the way over, unless you're a chicken, and then you're resisting. And if you resist and you don't want to tuck your shoulder, and you try and bring it up, you're going to try and flip the bike the other way. You can actually feel gravity taking you and trying to flip you. Okay? Or not gravity, whatever it is. It's too early in the morning to do physics. So essentially what's happening is your center of gravity is too high, and so it's trying to flip you the other way. Well, this happened to me because I saw some rocks on the road. It was kind of a blind corner. I'm looking down at the ground. I'm like, man, that doesn't look really good. I'm probably going 35, 40 miles an hour. And so I decide I'm not going to lean. I'm going to try and brake in the middle of this turn. And I've done that before. So I was coming down City Creek Canyon when I was first in college, and it's about a 90-degree corner, and it had some rocks, like 90-degree corner, then you have a little bit of gravel, and then you have a meadow. It was like a 5-foot drop into the meadow. And I was coming down close to sunset, and the sun was in my eyes. I couldn't see the corner. And so by the time the sun was out of my eyes, there was no chance I was going around that corner. So I had to brake, hop into the gravel, which if you've ever been on a road bike trying to go into the gravel and brake, you're going to die. You're not going to die, but it's very scary. And it's definitely something that I don't recommend anyone do. That happened to me about 7 years ago in college. Okay? When I was riding around this corner up Wheeler, that experience came to my mind. And instead of panicking and everything, I just said, okay, I'm halfway through the turn. I said, okay, I could see nobody's coming. I said, you're going to go straight. You're going to keep braking. You're going to do a little hop over the lip to get on the shoulder, and you're going to be fine. I was fine. And I still beat Ben down the hill by like 3 minutes. And the reason I bring up that story is because I was prepared. I had experience in doing that, pretty much that same thing. I had experience. I was prepared. And guess what? If I wasn't prepared, I probably would have panicked. And I could have laid out on the ground. I could have not braked hard enough and gone off the edge. I would have rather laid out on the ground. I've laid out going 25 miles an hour. It hurts, but you survive. I've never jumped off a mountain with a road bike before. And so you be prepared. Same thing with the coronavirus stuff. When it first hit, toilet paper, flour, noodles, Dr. Pepper now for some reason, all disappeared. If people were prepared and sure in themselves that they had enough supplies to be okay, you wouldn't have had a problem. Now, God tells us to be prepared. He tells us how to be prepared. So this is James 4:8. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. When you're in your spiritual wilderness, and I don't know if I'm going over time, by the way, because I don't know what that clock's saying. It's like 7:45. Too much. Oh. So how much time do I have? Am I way over? See, I knew this was going to happen, actually. So you could just kick me off the stage whenever you want. Am I good to keep going, or do I need to get off the stage?
We have other things to do with.
It's not going to hurt my feelings any. I can draw it to close in 10 minutes. Is that fair? Okay, we're just going to just rip that out. Yeah, I apologize about that. I started looking at the clock, and I'm like, I have no idea what time that is. So, God says, draw near to him, he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. I took that as you draw near to God, your spiritual whatever is going to end, your desert, your dryness, it's going to end. It's not true. No, you draw near to him, you fight, you push through it. Even if the Bible is the driest, most boring thing, you get in there and you read it because you need to know the nature of God for when a real disaster happens. Mine, it felt like a disaster. I thought my life was over when I failed that test and when God wasn't talking to me. It wasn't. It was a good learning experience. A very hard one that I'm still suffering from right now. And hopefully the suffering will end soon. But I take it again in a month, so maybe the suffering will end in a month. Unless I fail it again. So it's important to get in the Word. It's important to read our Bibles daily so we know God's character. Otherwise, it's going to be like walking out towards Gandhi with no water, no shoes, no food, in 100-degree heat. You're going to be a traveler going through the desert without any water. Okay? And, a lot of my favorite preachers, Bill Johnson, Todd White, those guys, they're all accused of teaching the American gospel, the prosperity gospel that doesn't, and I don't really read into this because then if you click on one weird link on Google, suddenly you get all these weird links as suggestions. And I've seen some weird stuff about religion out there, and so I try not to click on these links, but the gist from what I can get is everybody's mad that they teach, Christian life is going to be so, woohoo, this is going to be fun and whatever. Yeah, I don't think they teach that, but Christian life isn't easy. In fact, I would say it's harder than not being a Christian. And the reason is because you actually have convictions that you have to hold to. Not to say those who aren't Christians don't have convictions or whatever, but I've had a lot of talks with my friends who aren't Christian. They don't understand the gravity of their situation. Is that the right word? I don't know. Not into words, I'm into numbers. They don't understand what happens. They don't understand if I were to go out and to say, I agree with all your life choices. Not saying their life choices are hurting anyone except for themselves, but if they're going to go out and do a line of cocaine and then go rob and murder somebody, they don't understand if I were to do that knowing about God and what He says, I'm done. I mean, they're done too for a lot of reasons. So I think it's almost harder to be a Christian because you have this standard, this list of where you're supposed to hold yourself and what God wants from you, versus sometimes you just don't know. And if you don't know, it's really easy. So Christian life isn't an easy one, but it is the most beautiful love story that's ever been told. It's how I sell the Bible to people. They say, I want a good love story. I say, have you read the Bible? Because it is the most beautiful love story ever told. You were together, and then something happened. You broke up. And the rest of the book is God chasing after you to get back together again. And that's the most beautiful thing that I've ever heard. And I'm a sucker for chick flicks. I've pretty much seen all the ones on Netflix. Turns out if you try to do your relationships like the ones on Netflix, it doesn't go right. But I've seen all the chick flicks on Netflix, it feels like. So in closing, now that I'm like 6 hours too long, again, long-winded, herding cats, you're now experiencing what my students experienced every single class period. I'll leave you with this. We are not victims of this life. We make choices, and we have to deal with the consequences of our choices. And I'm going to refer to Joshua for my choice. And if it seems evil to you to serve the Lord, choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Okay, I'm done. Bye, everyone. I'm leaving tomorrow, probably before noon, which means 4 o'clock.
Kind of go along with that. Choose ye this day who you're going to serve. Good word. Thank you, Mark. I knew you had something to say.
Well, I didn't.
let's have the